Hello, everybody. Welcome. Hi, Larry. Hi, Donna. See some familiar faces. Thank you guys so much for joining us today. Just waiting for the rest of the folks in the waiting room to join. Hi, Stephanie. All right, so while the rest of our guests join us today, I'm going to start. I'm going to start with the introduction. All right, so thank you all. If you have not attended one of these events before, I'm Jillian LeClaire and I work for the Florida Tech Office of Alumni Affairs. And I want to thank you all for joining us for today's virtual Lunch and Learn lecture on the ever fascinating subject of sharks. I'm so excited to partner with Florida Tech faculty member, Dr. Toby Daly-Engel today to bring you this fun and informative event. And you'll see her with the shark swimming behind her. This lecture will be about 45 minutes long with time reserved at the end for questions. But if you think of any questions or comments throughout the lecture, just feel free to pop it in the chat box and we will circle back to it at the end of the event and make sure we answer your question. My only request of you guys is to keep your microphones on mute throughout the duration of the event because we don't like any of that nasty audio feedback. If you could do that, that would be wonderful. So to get a better idea of who's joining us today, I'm going to launch a quick poll. So take a minute and fill that out for me. And yes, Deirdre, the lecture will be recorded, so you can watch it later or share it if you'd like. We've got 50% of the votes in. Give you another 20 seconds. Okay, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And I'm going to end the polling. Okay, so let's see. We have the majority of attendees is tied between the 1980s and the 2010s. So we have a lot of recent alums with us. So thank you guys for joining us. Got 16% from the 2000s, 16% from the 70s. We have one person from 1958 through 1970. So original alum. It's awesome. And then we have 20% of folks who perhaps didn't go to Florida Tech and are just members of the community who want to learn about sharks. So welcome to you as well. What areas did you get your degree in? We have the most of science graduates. Second, our engineering and business are tied. We have a few aero folks, a few liberal arts, and some other. Where do you currently live? 50% live in Florida, which isn't surprising since most of our alumni live here as well. 30% from the East Coast of the US, 11% from US Central, 9% from the West Coast, and no international alumni joining us today, sad. And how do you feel about sharks? So 66% of you said that you love them. That's awesome, that's what we wanna see. 25% said cautiously curious. Okay, we can work with that. 9% said mildly fearful, but it doesn't keep you from dipping into the salt water. And 0% are scared stiff and won't swim in the ocean. So that's good. That's a great place to start. And now to introduce our speaker today. Dr. Toby Daly-Engel is the director of the Shark Conservation Lab at Florida Tech, where she and her students work with collaborators from state and federal agencies, non-governmental organizations, and public groups to conduct biomonitoring of Atlantic sharks, understand the impacts of rising temperatures on shark movement patterns, and identify novel species. Her research uses a combination of genomics, field ecology, and modeling to study mating systems, habitat use, and the impacts of climate change on shark populations. She also has a passion for promoting the representation of women in science-based fields, especially women of color. Dr. Toby has authored over 20 peer-reviewed publications and made several media appearances based on her work, such as appearing on Discovery Channel's Shark Week 30th Anniversary Special. In 2018, that segment was called Great White Shark Babies. And recently this spring, she filmed a show for Discovery that's all about tiger shark reproduction. And just a week and a half ago, she traveled to the Bahamas to dive with comedian Tiffany Haddish, one of Discovery's celebrity guests this year, about shark sex, which I'm sure will be hilarious. Both of these segments will run during Shark Week this August, so keep an eye out for those. Make sure to tune in. She also has a show on bull sharks coming out on Nat Geo's Shark Fest, which is their version of Shark Week, which will also air this summer. So she's our resident shark celebrity. And with that, I will turn it over to Dr. Toby.
Hi, thanks so much for having me, Jillian. And thank you everyone for coming. I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen right now. And if you have any questions, I'm gonna do my very best not to completely just talk the entire time and witter on. But if I have this, I guess I have this minimized, so I may not actually see the chat. So we'll probably, I'm gonna guess, wait until later for questions. Is that okay with you, Jillian? How's that view?
Looks great.
Okay. So as you can see, I'm going to talk to you today about a bunch of stuff having to do with sharks, reproduction, conservation, and the myth of shark attack. So hopefully today you'll learn some things that you maybe didn't know about sharks. So I'm going to start with just a little bit about what I do. I'm a molecular ecologist, which means that I basically do part ecology, field study, classic ecology, go out and like catch stuff. And then part of the time I'm in the lab and my students and I are doing stuff with genetics. And so part of the time we're doing things like yearly seasonal biomonitoring, where we actually are tagging and releasing sharks to look at local diversity in native species. We collect tissue samples for DNA. We collect water samples for DNA, among other things. And then we do lab-based research, which is really mostly genetics, just on local and also non-local species of sharks and, believe it or not, other organisms, although they're not quite as cool. So for the first part, we use tools like boating, scuba, handling animals safely so that they can be released alive and flourish. And that includes fishing, tag and release fishing, for sometimes tracking with things like satellites, or acoustic telemetry. And then, of course, the tools required for lab-based research are totally different. And really, that's just whatever kind of fits the question. So we're really question-driven with regards to sharks because they are of conservation concern, meaning they're in trouble. But I'm going to get to that more depressing part later. So these are some photos of some of the students in my lab. And so you can see part of the time we're doing fun things in the lab with like pipettes and molecules. And sometimes we're actually in the field doing cool stuff with sharks. And even though we're wearing lab coats in this picture in general, we don't actually wear lab coats unless we're cold or working with bleach or getting our picture taken. So let's start with things you might know about fish already. First of all, sharks already. They are a type of fish. Second, they, for the most part, live in the ocean, right? We know, probably you know that if you love sharks, like I know this audience does, that you know that some sharks can potentially come into freshwater, and you'd be right. They can eat you. Most people know that, but they won't, which is hopefully something that you'll learn in this talk. And they look like this, right? This is literally just a Google Images search of the word shark. And this is the first thing that comes up. In fact, this is the first 8 things that come up. And so what you get from sharks just by kind of looking through the media often, the non-scientist view of sharks, you're getting a picture of basically there's one species. There's great white sharks and more great white sharks, and also they can eat you, like Rihanna in that picture. So these are things that you might have gotten just by living in the world, things you might know already. So now we're going to switch away from that, and I'm going to tell you some things that you might not know. And these are things that we're actually just finding out, and that's why we don't know them yet. So sharks are actually really ancient. This is an evolutionary tree that simply shows, here's the bottom of the first organism that had a backbone. And then these guys, these really long branches that split off first, these are when these creatures kind of became their own branch on the tree of life. So they branched away from everything else. And cartilaginous fishes, or sharks, were some of the first organisms to do so way back 400 to 450 million years ago. So this is, way before any of the dinosaurs. In fact, sharks were the first organisms to have closing jaws, hence the movie. In fact, they've had time to diversify. So they're not just ancient as a group. Everything on Earth today is as evolved as everything else. Nothing stops evolving. So sharks just have had a lot of time to specialize and get really good at what they do for a living. And that includes getting really weird and adapting to some usual and unusual environments. So believe it or not, all of these things that you see are sharks. In fact, all stingrays and skates are also sharks. They're just flat sharks. We call them batoids or pancake sharks. So something else, don't tell the stingray people that I said that about the pancakes. So something else you might not know about sharks, that we're still finding out a lot about them. A lot of that diversity that I'm mentioning, a lot of this stuff is just coming out now through the use of new technologies and also new interest in sharks, because we know so many populations and species are actually in trouble. So a lot of the diversity that we're seeing, the new species that we're describing of sharks, look exactly like old species that we thought we knew about. And the only reason we can tell that they're this brand new species is through their DNA. So my lab and others have spent a lot of time while we're using molecules on sharks to kind of answer ecology questions and conservation questions. We're actually finding a whole bunch of genetic novelty. So these are just two species that my lab was able to describe, new species, just 2018 alone, that were previously thought to be other species. They're called cryptic species, and you can only find them with their DNA. And so a lot of things we don't know about sharks include sometimes just how many species there are out there, especially in the deep ocean where things are really weird. And so something we're going to talk about at length today, and my personal favorite part of talking about sharks, because I'm a reproductive biologist, not a pervert, there's a big difference there, is that sharks actually reproduce more like mammals, like humans, than they do like other types of fish. So this right here is a baby whale shark. Look at that. It still has like umbilical egg soap schmutz attached to it, like brand new. This is a little mako shark. They can get up to 10, 12 feet long, massive animals, but they start out very cute and very squee, and they grow really slowly. So most fishes, most bony fishes, because they have bones, sharks have cartilage, they lay eggs, or the males release sperm in these great clouds. It's called broadcast spawning. So female releases a ton of eggs, males release a ton of sperm, and all of those gametes get together and form fish larvae and float around as plankton. And so for bony fishes, there's always like a supply of plankton somewhere, usually in the water where the adults are settled at the adult habitat. So that's most fish. Most sharks, the vast majority, in fact, all but a few groups, actually give live birth, just like we do. Here is a pregnant human, and here is a pregnant sandbar shark. They they get really big. What can I say? They get real pregnant. And so this is a litter of dogfish sharks. This is the kind of shark you might, if you dissected sharks in biolab, this was kind of the kind that you dissected. So they actually give birth like we do. And like we do, they have external genitalia. And this was the big subject of my conversation with Tiffany Haddish for Shark Week, where they will actually have internal fertilization. They copulate, they have sex. And their pregnancies can last anywhere from like 7 months to over 2 years. Yes, insane. So females and males both have what's called a cloaca, but a male also has what's called claspers, shark penises. And this is your obligatory picture of penetrative shark sex. You're welcome. I'll just give you guys a minute. See the people in the background taking pictures. Yeah. So shark sex is actually kind of a dicey proposition. In sharks, females are actually bigger, and this is true of all fish. So, except sometimes the male and female are the same size, but usually the female's bigger. And so the male kind of has to attach himself to her and kind of wrap himself around her. And he signals interest by slashing and biting at the female's fins and around her groin area. And then they both kind of go like crashing to the substrate. And, you know, most sharks have to swim in order to breathe. And so it just causes a big fuss. And in the end, the female can actually get a little bit like roughed up, and it's not always something that we don't think, well, we'll choose to mate given the opportunities. Many females will avoid mating, and a lot of them get really roughed up because of mating. But that's literally shark copulation. They also have uteruses in addition to having shark penises. And the babies, like I said, take a really long time to first grow inside the mama. And then they can also take a long time to grow up. There are a few shark species that lay eggs. Those are mostly smaller species and the minority of shark species out there. So just again, like mammals like us, sharks also grow really slowly. So they have, instead of having a bajillion tiny babies like bony fish, they have just a relatively few really big, large-bodied, really healthy babies. And those babies take a really long time to grow up, and turns out they can live a long time too. So this was a study published just a couple of years ago where a group used a new type of analysis on Greenland sharks and found that a couple of the individuals that they tested were anywhere from 250 to 400 years old. Yeah, one shark. They're like a Joshua tree. I mean, go figure. It's not like they've probably got like the oldest shark in the ocean, right? So it would have reached maturity at around 150 years. I mean, these are really, really, really slow growing creatures. And so that's a Greenland shark, but a lot of sharks have this, or I should say all sharks have this same slow growth strategy. They maybe don't all get that old. They maybe, in fact, we know more shallower, warmer water shark species have higher metabolisms. And so they grow a little faster. And, but you know, it's still probably as long, if not longer, than humans live. The other thing you might not know is just how important sharks are for the health of the world's oceans. And this is because sharks are, as you probably know, predators. In fact, you've probably heard the term apex predator, which is the predator at the very top of the food chain. In fact, most sharks are what we call mesopredators. They're not massive. They're sort of medium-sized things. And so they're both predator and prey. And as such, they play a really important role in keeping the ocean healthy. And if we were to lose sharks, it would be to lose important parts of the marine food chain. And so sharks will kind of keep the rest of the food web in balance by weeding out the sick and the weak and the sort of genetic mutants, like, you know, like lionesses on the plains. They're not, when they're taking down gazelle, they're not going for like the fastest, healthiest young gazelle. They're going for the one that is a little slow or a little old or has some sort of disease. And so they really help keep the entire food web in balance that way. And so when sharks disappear, that control over all those other prey species goes with it. And so those animals can overpopulate, overuse their resources, and it can cause this cascading sort of effect on the diversity of the entire environment. Another thing you might not know about sharks is that they're actually in trouble. And by trouble, I mean, there are things that we know, like single species that we know are in trouble from climate change, things like polar bears, right? And then there are entire groups that we're worried about. So we're worried about bees, right? We know all bees are kind of in trouble. Sharks are one of those groups. And it's really because of a combination of things. But the effect that humans have had on shark populations is compounded by the fact that they do grow and reproduce so slowly. So this is the problem with sharks. Sharks, as you know, don't grow and reproduce like other fish. If we cull a whole population of sharks, they're not going to be there the next year. They're not going to settle out of the plankton. And that's unfortunate because sharks are disappearing pretty rapidly, partly because of their fins. Their fins continue to be a luxury in a big part of the world, primarily China, Hong Kong, and Canada. And that market really drives the profits in shark fishing. And so you kind of can't blame people if, they're catching these animals like they would any other fish, and just simply their fins alone could be a year's salary. And so as long as the market for shark fin soup persists, and like I said, that's a luxury, like if you're doing well, I know the first thing I would do is like buy some, I don't know, really fancy handbag if I was, some mark of luxury. Shark fin soup is a mark of luxury. So when people attain socioeconomic status, such as happened for a large population of Asia over the past couple of decades, this type of food becomes more common. And part of it is because their flesh is eaten as well. Mako shark is served as a delicacy, not a delicacy really, but as a, right alongside swordfish in fancy restaurants. Oftentimes things that are labeled as Mako shark are not. There's some other species, usually sandbar shark. But there remains, a market for shark meat. Shark fishing for sport has a fair bit of impact. We know that thanks to new research coming out of various places, including the University of Miami, that sharks stress out, maybe as a byproduct of being really well adapted to their environment. If you mess with that environment and you take them out of it, they actually accumulate stress hormone like we do. I mean, you've heard that stress can kill, and it's true, but like in us, it's gradual via like heart disease. In sharks, it can be much more acute. We find that sharks will accumulate stress hormone while they're being angled, while they're on the end of a hook. And depending on how much stress they accumulate, they'll die later, no matter whether or not they're released live. So if you live, for instance, on the coast and you've ever seen like a dead shark on the beach, that shark was probably released live, but it had been messed with. So, we don't take them out of the water because we know that it stresses them out so badly. And so, but by far the vast majority of sharks are killed for their fins or as bycatch from commercial fishermen, or commercial fishing in general. And so simply because, many sharks have to swim to breathe, they get caught up in nets, and lots and lots and lots of sharks are killed because they're either swimming with things that fishermen are pursuing, like tuna, or they're actually trying to eat the tuna themselves, but they get caught, and that's not regulated all that well. So the most, I said that the bycatch thing is important, and that's true, but the most important, the biggest reason really, is because of fear. And it's also the most understandable, right? I mean, there's a lot of reasons why you might have a part of you that fears sharks. Like, like we found out in the poll. I mean, there's a lot of good reasons, a lot of bad reasons. But it's really pretty natural, pretty understandable to kind of have that in the back of your head when you're going in the water. I know I do. I mean, I study sharks, and yet, I've been surfing a few times and I'm terrible at it, but I lived in Hawaii, and so I gave it a shot. And, if you're sort of out there and it's kind of dark and can't really see below the water, I'm like putting my legs up on the board, it's normal. It's instinctual. So just a little bit of myth busting for you. 97% of attacks in the US are not fatal. 97 to 99% even. In the rest of the world, it goes down to about 95, 93%. And that's only because some places are super remote. Here in the US, we often have first aid available close to the beach. And so we can do things like stop bleeding. So most shark attacks, quote unquote, shark attacks are not fatal. Most of the shark attacks that occur. Not sure why I muted there for a sec. Must have touched the space bar. Sorry. So there's about 50 attacks per year in the US, and we have almost 60% of them in Florida. Woohoo! We're number one. But that still means only about, in the whole US, not just Florida, but in the entire US, about one fatality every 2 years in this country. And globally, there's anywhere from 0 to 5 fatalities due to shark attack per year. So it's really, really, quite low. I mean, New Smyrna Beach, which is the #1 site of shark attack in the entire world, and Volusia County, just to the north of us, they've literally never, ever had a fatality, ever, because they're little tiny, little black tips hunting basically minnows in the same place that people are wading. So every once in a while, a shark bumps into somebody's leg and scrape with the teeth as they're running away, and that's your shark attack. Granted, that's not all shark attacks, I realize, and any fatality is bad. But for the most part, there are 3 species that we know of that are responsible for most shark attacks: bull sharks, tiger sharks, and white sharks. And we think, or indeed we know, that shark attack is a result of mistaken identity. I mean, like I said, those things evolved 400 million years ago. And that's a lot of evolution that does not include adapting to eat terrestrial animals. They are simply marine creatures. We are not. But in certain situations, we may resemble marine creatures. For instance, here's somebody on a surfboard, and here's somebody hanging out and being a turtle. And so, not only do we sometimes look like prey, but we don't look like the most graceful prey. We're like, I don't know, kind of like disabled, not disabled, but kind of like, mutant seals when we're in the ocean. We look like potentially vulnerable prey. So there's a lot of things that kill more people than sharks because 0 to 5 per year. So some things that kill more people than sharks. And again, I'll give you a minute. I'm not sure how many children there are, but I felt like going with the adult slides. So if you don't know what autoerotic asphyxiation is, ask an adult. Yeah, Grand Canyon, selfies at the Grand Canyon, more people die. Black Friday shopping at Walmart. Walmart alone kills more people than sharks. Yeah, cows, bathtubs, vending machines. That's a big one. Don't shake them. That is the moral of the story with the vending machine. You're more likely to get struck by lightning 3 separate times than bitten by a shark once. You're actually technically, statistically more likely to get bitten by someone from New York than you are by a shark. And I am actually from New York, so I can say that definitively. Yeah. So that's, maybe some statistics make you feel better. Maybe not. Like I said, if you go in the water and you're kind of like, then that's normal. That's okay. You're allowed to be cautious. It's not a bad thing, as long as it doesn't keep you from enjoying the ocean environment. And if you see a shark, then you've been lucky that the environment that you're in is actually a healthy one. So Here's the real depressing part. They kill 0 to 5 of us per year. Turns out we kill probably over, and this is conservative, over 100 million sharks per year. And like you now know, these guys don't just come back. That's like taking out potentially a third of the population of the US, because those animals are just, they're not going to be there next year. And so the real problem is that we're really losing species and populations as we're discovering them. And that's kind of the fear, is that lots of them are just going to go away before they're even known. 25 species of sharks and rays that we know of are at risk of extinction, but most shark and ray species are what we call data deficient, meaning there's simply no information. We don't know if they're going extinct. We don't know. I mean, most shark populations are in trouble, but we simply don't have that information. So if you are one of those people that thinks about shark attack, that's okay. And that's actually, like I said, totally normal, does not make you a bad person. I too am naturally cautious of sharks. What you can do to protect yourself, if you see a shark, simply don't act like bait. Don't do a lot of thrashing. Don't act like the injured gazelle. Don't swim with your pet. Dogs, when they swim with their owners, splash a lot. Don't swim with your dog. If you see a shark, don't touch it. Even if it looks dead, don't touch it. And if you really want to freak yourself out, go on, search the internet for dead shark bite, because there's a lot of videos of, and I think my favorite involves somebody trying to kiss a nurse shark, and then it like latches onto his, and he actually didn't get his face ripped off. He just got a bunch of stitches. But like, also, why would you kiss a nurse shark? That it's a shark. Don't touch a shark, even if it looks dead. Don't be like these people. These people are not scientists. You can tell a scientist because they do not touch the creatures unless they are doing science. Our objective is to protect the animal and not to interfere with its natural behavior. Just because you touched the female white shark and she didn't eat you does not mean she liked it. This person is not a shark biologist. This person is just enjoys getting her picture taken and his picture taken with sharks. And so don't touch the animals, and you're unlikely to be hurt by it. If you dig sharks like I do and you want to do stuff to protect them, if you're fishing for sharks and you catch one, just unhook it. Don't take it out of the water if possible. If you can't unhook it, just cut the line. Better that you leave the hook in there and it'll hopefully just rust out, rather than taking their gills out of the water, because we know that that traumatizes and may actually kill that shark, even if it seems to swim away. People think, by the way, this is an aside, I get questions sometimes when I speak in public about, oh, do you hate fishermen? And I absolutely do not. I mean, we're in Florida. Fishing is a part of our culture. There is nothing wrong with that. And in fact, many of the people that I've met that care about sharks the most are shark fishermen and women. So if you're someone who fishes for sharks and you catch one, just try to leave it in the water and let it go as quickly as possible. Try not to take it out of the water and take a picture with it. And support laws protecting sharks. There are very, very few of them, and they're not well enforced. In fact, there's only, in the last couple of years, the first ever permit was introduced in Florida to govern shark fishing from the beach. And all it says is that you can't chum where people are swimming. And it's a free permit. People just have to basically show up and get a little bit of a spiel like I'm giving you about how fragile they are. And then they can go fish for sharks. And so shore-based shark fishing just got protected in Florida, which again, it's just, you have to go apply for a free permit. It's actually less protection than governs other types of fishing. Support shark research. There's, believe it or not a ton of funding for shark research in federal and state budgets during pandemic. That's sarcasm. Obviously, a pandemic is pretty important. So a lot of our research funding that we use to try and figure out the things that we need to know in order to enact protections for shark species is privately funded, or, you know, a lot of the media that I do, the Shark Week stuff, those things like that. Those kind of honorariums go toward right to my students. Most shark labs are like that in universities in the US. So if there's an opportunity, feel free to, you know, support shark research and shark conservation. If you, you know, go into a restaurant and you see, or a Whole Food store or health food store, and you see them selling shark cartilage pills, those don't work. Talk to the management. I'm not saying you should like be a Karen, but say, hey, just so you know, this is based on no research. It's actively harming sharks. The market for shark fin soup, for shark cartilage, it's a problem. So don't patronize businesses that deal in harmful shark products, which is any shark product. And tell people how cool sharks are. I mean, shoot, 450-year-old shark. I mean, that's pretty crazy. It's pretty amazing, at least to me. So with that, I would like to thank my students and everybody else in my lab, the people at Florida Tech who've supported me since my lab started. These are just some of our students. If you'd like to learn more about the work we do, you can find us online, research.fit.edu, and Daly-Engel Lab is our handle on social media. And none of this would be possible without our generous donors, our funding support, and our many collaborators who work with all of us. And you know, the animals that we study occur, many of them, all over the world. And so it really takes a global kind of coalition of scientists and students and allies to promote shark conservation when it's something that not everybody thinks should be conserved. So with that, I will stop talking. Oh, wait, first I have a shameless plug. Thank you, Jillian. I'm going to just let everybody know that the Nat Geo show that I appear on, that actually a lot of my students' research appears on, and my PhD student, Shannon, is hopefully also going to be on this show. She was filmed. We don't know if she made the cut, but it's her dissertation research where we're looking at how climate change is affecting bull shark nurseries, especially in the Indian River Lagoon by Florida Tech. So Shark Fest, we know that show is going to be on Tuesday, the 13th of July at 10 Eastern. And then Shark Week 2021, our Tiger Shark show, blah, 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 I just found out it got a name, and the name is Mother Sharkers, which I think is not the greatest name. I have to put that on my CV, and it's basically a curse word. But anyway, it's about mother tiger sharks. So I'm not sure when that's going to be scheduled. The schedule has yet to come out, but it's the one with the vaguely dirty title. And then, like Jillian said, and I have to brag for a second because it was insane, I got to work with Tiffany Haddish, who is just as amazing as you might imagine. So tune in for that. Got to talk about shark penises and go shark diving with Tiffany Haddish. So with that, I will stop talking, and I will take any questions that you might have.
All right, so I'm going to go back to the beginning in the chat because we've had a lot of questions. So let's see. S. Roth, I think so. I don't know what the S stands for, but what got you interested in sharks? And have you ever had a new variety named after you?
No, I've never had a shark named after me. I'm not nearly that important. But I've gotten to name sharks after other people, which was super cool. I have always oddly been interested in sharks. We don't actually know where that came from. I asked my parents, and they were like, we don't remember. We just remember you liking sharks. And so they got me a book about Eugenie Clark, the original shark lady. And I got to name a shark after her. So that was exciting. But I was just like a weird little kid, apparently. Like most little kids like horses. And I was like all about sharks. It was I've always been like this is basically the message. Yeah.
All right, next question. Also from S. Roth. How big is the biodiversity area that sharks cover? Does it go seasonal with their migrational habits or shift as to where they move with the weather or environment or other factors?
Okay, I see the chat now. Yes, the sharks are all over the world. Sharks are in the deep ocean, they're in rivers, they're in Lake Nicaragua, a lot of freshwater stingrays and stuff like that. And just like any other type of wildlife, the types of birds that are around your house may change with the seasons, same exact with sharks. So they will kind of adapt to whatever the environment is, and they're very good at what they've been doing. They're not good at coping with climate change because just like other animals, the global pace of climate change is much slower than the pace of human caused climate change, anthropogenic climate change. And so they simply can't adjust that quickly. That's all. Someone said, do you like watching shark movies? No, I really don't. I don't even like watching Shark Week. I don't even like watching myself. Critique myself more harshly than I think anybody else. Hot dogs, yes. Choking. Don't eat your hot dogs too fast. Hot dogs are apparently a really, really common choking food. Do I tend to bite people only from Florida, or is anywhere my territory? I think that person misunderstood part of the talk. Yes, that I know. That slide is fun. Tell your friends. How adaptive are sharks to changing ocean water temperature? Yeah, so just like I was saying, so what we're finding out is that sharks generally, they each have their own range of thermal tolerance based on where they evolved. So like Larry said, great white sharks generally like cooler water. They tend to stay further offshore. They don't come in as shallow. So yes, they are going to move. So no, they can't stay in water past their warming point. They can move. Fortunately, lots of sharks, they can move. Baby sharks, they're stuck in the same habitat year round, tends to be really shallow, like nursery habitat. And so those are much more at risk. But we're finding out that warmth has shaped the evolution, water temperature has shaped the evolution of even deep water sharks. And so like I said, they can each adapt to a certain point, and after that point they can't. So it's like every other organism. Thank you for that. Yes, if anybody wants to support our lab, all donations go directly to students and our nonprofit. The best place to scuba dive with sharks. Ooh. There's a bunch of different places in Florida. I don't have much personal experience, so I wouldn't be the best person to ask about that. But I use J&D scuba divers in Melbourne. They're really knowledgeable about that sort of thing. I have a favorite type of shark. I like deep water sharks. Actually, I like 6-gill sharks because they're super weird and squishy, and just like their eyes are amazing. They're just like big green eyes because they're such deep water weird things. What tags do we use? We use, like I said, whatever type of tag basically fits the question. So and also whatever tags we can afford. So every fish that we catch gets a DART tag, just a little plastic thing that has the National Marine Fisheries Service phone number and a unique tag identifier. So if you catch that animal, you can call in to NOAA to report that. And then if we have acoustic pinger tags or satellite tags, that's even better, but those are super expensive. So it really just depends on our resources and also the question. Have I worked with Moat? Oh, absolutely, yes. In fact, a couple of my students, so Moat got this amazing, like, bajillion dollar 5-year grant, I think, to do yearly biomonitoring, actually quarterly biomonitoring every 3 months out in the Gulf. And so they're going shark fishing, they're tagging. We get DNA samples from them. And I also send my students out fishing with them because right now I don't have a boat that I can use reliably here at Florida Tech. So I'm not doing my own field work right now. I'm relying on collaborators. And so it's awesome. Moat is amazing. There's so many great folks there. And so I can literally send my grad students and some undergrads, depends on the pandemic. But I actually send them to go out and get field experience and collect samples for the lab. So it's not just genetics experience. The students aren't just doing the genetics work. They're actually going out, they're learning boating, they're learning husbandry and tag and release and whatever else they need to be able to do this research. That's a good question. How can we get involved in research concerning shark conservation? Any job in science research is a really good stepping stone, because what you're studying, what you're doing research on, doesn't matter nearly as much as the process of research. In fact, I worked for 2 years after my undergrad, and I worked in Boston studying genetics on mice, biomedicine, mice that got psoriasis, so mouse skin diseases. And then I literally went from there to Hawaii to study sharks, because the process of research is common to whatever you're working on. So, work your butt off in school and take whatever kind of research opportunity comes your way. The further you go in your career, the more choice you'll have over what kind of work that you do, and you can steer that towards sharks. I've read that scientists sometimes flip sharks on their backs. Yeah, we do that. It's called tonic immobility. It works really well. No, it doesn't stress them out. The only danger is that if they stay flipped over, they can drown. And so usually what we do is we'll put a hose in their mouth, flip them over and put a hose in their mouth, so there's always water over the gills. And then we measure them, and then flip them back over. They wake up, and we put a tag in and let them go. It's called tonic immobility, and it's really handy. It actually works on a bunch of different animals, not just sharks. Research on HAB effects on sharks. There is, but not much, and I am super interested in that. In fact, that's something that I've been chatting a little bit with Dr. Spencer Fire at the university, who studies the effect of harmful algal bloom toxins on marine mammals. And so we were thinking of hopefully collaborating on something where we can look at just that, because sharks have adapted to HABs just like they have everything else. And Dr. Fire told me that he's seen bull sharks with levels of HAB toxins that would kill an entire pod of dolphins, and they're just swimming around. Boop, boop, boop. So it's worth potentially thinking about. Thanks, Michelle. Does everybody know Michelle Jewell? She's amazing. Mike said, attended a Zoom chat by Dave Ebert. Yep, Dave Ebert does that. He describes a lot of shark species. He does not, unfortunately, do genetics, which I'm a big believer in basically using all of the different tools possible to study something, including genetics, because we know that things can look very much alike and be genetically really different. And Dr. Ebert actually works on the other side of that. He describes the physical differences between animals. And so very complementary. So many questions. Just cut me off anytime, Jillian, because I'll just keep wittering on. Okay. My best experience in the field with sharks, any experience where they swim off healthy and we're confident that they're good. What we try most of all is not to injure, the animal. We really just want it to be healthy and strong. And so anytime that's happening, and also having students with me in the field is amazing, because, there's things like they've only really seen on TV, and, they've probably been hanging out in my lab for a few months and doing the genetics and getting into that. And they're amazing. And, Florida Tech gives students a lot of credits. My students can get 12 credits of research. Trust me, they don't pay me to say this. I just love it, because I think undergrads are really underestimated in research, and given enough time and invested with enough training, they can be as effective as any graduate student. Shark populations that are at their natural levels, we do not know. Probably not. We know that the ocean itself, everywhere, even in the deepest of trenches, have things like microplastics. So the likelihood of any shark species having been, unchanged for the past 20,000 years is low. But we know climate change has had a bad effect has changed a lot of things. I'm not currently taking grad students. I hope that changes soon. Thanks for asking. I'm sure there's always opportunities for students, not bio students, business students, any students, just getting involved. Now that the pandemic is starting to be, okay, so I'm going to put, I'm a scientist. I'm going to put in a personal plug for vaccinations. Get yourself vaccinated and then go join a beach cleanup. Volunteer for the Archie Carr Marine National Refuge down here in Melbourne Beach. Go to the Brevard Zoo and see if they have volunteer opportunities. There's all sorts of things that are going on that are going to kind of start back up now that we have we can sort of approach this kind of research safely. So like everything else for safety's sake, marine biology, which takes a lot of people, has really wound down. We've had to be very, very, very careful. But opportunities are coming back. So you can do that. Populations of sharks in Florida are, first of all, most of them we don't really know. Second of all, they're not as bad as they could be. So there are actual protections in place here. Places like Australia, they have almost no laws that protect their sharks. So relative to other places, we're actually doing pretty well. True that sharks do actually get cancer, and that's why shark pills are bosh. They do get cancer, but they also invented the adaptive immune system, meaning the same one that we rely on for vaccinations and antibodies were evolved with sharks because they were the first things to have jaws, the first animals to get lots of different types of prey, which brought pathogens, but also the first to have internal baby gestation. So they developed the molecular ability to tell self apart from pathogen, apart from baby. So thank you, sharks. So they do have amazing immune systems and they're subject to a lot of research, but no, they definitely get cancer. And so unfortunately that's a myth. Why do megalodon sharks seem concentrated in specific areas? Because they, like every other animal, have places where they used to live and places where they don't. And also places where the substratum was hospitable to making fossils, like Tyrannosaurus. We know that Tyrannosaurus lived in North America. They don't live elsewhere either because they didn't live there or because we didn't find them there. So it's just like any other type of fossil. If you see fossilized shark teeth, it's because the area where you're digging used to be the seabed. O-search tracking. O-search is fine. O-search is great. They can, just like any other tool, opportunity, or group, they, they do good work. They're subject to, I don't know, whoever is running them at the time. I don't know. But yeah, what I love about O-search is how you can like go online and look at the sharks. Like they've actually brought that kind of platform out and made it really public and really accessible. So I really love that they've put that out there because people can now learn so much. Have shark populations shown behavior or genetic change? Well, like other fishes, they've, daughter has loved sharks forever. Yay, me too. The short answer is we don't know. The long answer is yes. We know some shark populations have actually started moving like northward in response to warm water temperature. And like other species of fish, we know that sharks have been maturing faster and smaller. So like, how you've heard the term like, oh, that's just an old fish story. And you got it, like the idea of like your grandpa just being like, a fish used to be this big. In actuality, they did. They used to be that big. And what happens when you put pressure, when the fish population starts disappearing, people are getting the big fish first. And so what happens is it forces the fishes to the ones that are maturing really fast, growing fast, and maturing first. Those are the ones that are going to pass on their genes, because the bigger they are, the more likely they are to get fished out. And so what happens is you end up with the adult fish that is now this big, whereas, you know, just a couple generations ago, the big adult fish used to be this big. So that's true of sharks as well. How good is shark eye sight? I don't know. I don't know where that site is. I'm sorry. Terrible local guide, because I have only been here for a few years and I haven't gotten a ton of opportunities to dive here. Oh, perfect. The Florida Wildlife Hospital has volunteer opportunities. That's fantastic. A meteorology minor. Hi. Very interested in seeing how climate change affects sharks. Oh, good. I'm glad that you are interested. We're really just, you know, believe it or not, there's so much that we don't know. There's much more that we don't know compared to what we do know. So if you're someone who's interested in doing shark research, I say, go for it. Bear in mind, we all do other types of research. I have studied a lot of other things besides sharks, but the important thing is just to get whatever opportunities you can, regardless of what kind of animal it is that you're working on, to get good experience, different techniques, different systems, and work your butt off. It doesn't have to be, I'm living proof, by the way, that you don't have to have the perfect 4.0 or even sometimes even close to get cool jobs. I did not have the best GPA because I went to a small, private, really good, really challenging school like you guys did, like Florida Tech. And so I got probably more out of my little, 3-point whatever or 2-point whatever that I got than a lot of people do out of their 4.0s. And I know that because I went from there to Harvard. And anyway, it's another story. But just work your butt off. You have whatever, natural intelligence you need to do this job, because it's really the person who perseveres and not the person who has the most native intelligence in the world who gets to do the fun stuff.
All right, well, we are closing in on the hour. So thank you so much, Dr. Toby, for answering everybody's questions. And also thank you for volunteering your time to give this lecture for our alumni. For those of you who are out of university for a while, you may not realize that the semester's over. It's her summer. So she graciously volunteered to give us talk for us today. So thank you so much. We really appreciate it.
And thank you for inviting me. I hope everybody learned something today. And so even if it's just not to shake a vending machine.
Yeah, don't do that. Okay. So I will send you all a link with the recording if you want to see it again. And I also put the link to the Shark Conservation Lab in the chat. If you want to support Dr. Toby's students' research, you can do that there. I know a lot of you already did that when you registered. So thanks again. And I look forward to seeing you all for our next virtual Lunch and Learn lecture. Take care, everybody.
Thank you so much. Bye.